There's a very specific kind of silence inside a sensitive compartmented information facility, ASCIF. It's heavy, pressurized, the kind of silence that smells like recycled air and ozone, underscored by the quiet hum of servers holding the potential to level cities. I've lived in that silence for 15 years. I know the rhythm of national defense better than I know the rhythm of my own heartbeat. When you design the encryption schema for a $2 billion missile response protocol, you're not just writing code. You're building the architecture of survival. I'm not a soldier. I don't carry a rifle. My weapon is logic, and my battlefield is usually a whiteboard in a windowless room at the Pentagon. But 3 months ago, the battlefield shifted to a glass-walled corporate office in Northern Virginia. And the enemy wasn't a foreign state actor. It was a man named Clayton Marks. A suit with a freshly printed business card and a smile that never quite reached his eyes. I walked into the lobby of Helix Systems at 7:45 a.m., sharp. The building was one of those architectural flexes common in the defense sector, too much glass, too much steel, designed to look transparent while hiding everything. Usually, the security guards, Miller and Davis, give me a nod. They know better than to ask for ID. They've seen me walk in with 3-star generals. But that morning, Miller wasn't at the desk. There was a new guy, young, nervous, tapping at a tablet. I approached the turnstiles and pulled my badge from my purse. A hard plastic card with a magnetic strip that had granted me access to rooms that don't officially exist. I tapped it against the reader. Beep, beep, red light. I frowned and adjusted my grip. Maybe it was the magnet in my phone case. I tried again. Beep, beep, red light. Access denied, flashed on the small OLED screen in polite, glowing letters. Ma'am, the new guard called out. He wasn't rude, just doing his job. If the badge isn't working, you'll need to sign in at the guest kiosk. I stopped. The air in the lobby suddenly felt thin. I looked down at the badge in my hand. It wasn't just plastic. It was 10 years of clearance work. To be redirected to the guest kiosk felt like more than a glitch. It felt deliberate. Maybe it was the first shot in a war one didn't realize I was fighting. It's Diana Grant, I said evenly. I'm the lead architect for the Sentinel protocol. My clearance is higher than the CEO's. Check the manual override list. The guard tapped his screen, brow furrowing. I'm sorry, Miss Grant. I don't see you on the active employee roster. The system lists you as external vendor. Pending expiration. Pending expiration. The words hung in the air like smoke. The guard was a pawn. The person moving him was upstairs, on the 40th floor. Fine, I said. I'll sign in. I walked to the iPad mounted on a stand. It asked for my name, the person I was visiting, and, most insultingly, my citizenship status. I typed, Diana Grant. For the host, I typed, Clayton Marks. The machine spat out a flimsy thermal paper badge. I slapped it onto the lapel of my tailored blazer. It felt like a target. As I waited for the elevator, I ran diagnostics in my head. Why now? The project was in phase 4. Weeks away from the final Department of Defense review. Integration testing was 90% complete. The only variable that had changed was leadership. The old VP of Strategic Accounts had retired to a golf course in Florida. In his place, Clayton. A man who'd spent 5 years, optimizing synergies, at a mid-tier logistics firm. A man who probably thought TCP/IP was a craft beer. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside, surrounded by junior analysts doom-scrolling on their phones. They didn't look up. To them, I was just a middle-aged woman in a suit, HR, maybe legal. They had no idea the code protecting the security on their phones was based on a kernel I wrote in 2014. The 40th floor felt different. It usually hummed with focused energy. That day, it felt performative. People walking faster, talking louder, carrying stacks of paper that looked important but were probably blank. I walked straight to my office. The corner one with the view of the Potomac. Or rather, what used to be my office. The door was open. Inside, 2 facilities workers were moving a ficus tree into the corner. My mahogany desk, the one where I'd mapped out the logic gates for missile interceptors, was gone. In its place stood a sleek glass table with 4 chairs. A collaboration pod. Excuse me, I said. They froze. Where are my files? The hard drives that were in the safe. Mr. Marks had them moved, one said, wiping sweat from his forehead. He's repurposing the space for collaborative ideation. Your things are in the annex. Cube 4B. The annex. Corporate code for purgatory. Windowless. Near the bathrooms. Where they put interns and contractors about to be fired. A cold prickle ran down my spine. Not anger. Anger is messy, sloppy. This was adrenaline. The system detecting a threat. Clayton wasn't just moving my desk. He was rewriting the narrative, physically removing me from the center of power before the final payout. I walked to the annex. It was gray, airless. There, in a cubicle half my size, sat a cardboard box with my personal effects, a framed photo of my dog, a stress ball, and my award from the NSA. My secure terminal, the one with direct lines to the Pentagon test servers, was unplugged and sitting on the floor. I lowered myself into the cheap rolling chair. It squeaked. Most people would have stormed into Clayton's office. Yelled. Threatened to sue. I don't yell. I execute. I pulled out my personal laptop, air-gapped, encrypted with a key that exists only in my head, and opened a new file. Log 0. If Clayton wanted to play a visibility game, he was about to learn something about camouflage. The most dangerous things in the world aren't the ones in the spotlight. They're the ones you don't see until the impact counter hits 0. I opened my email on my phone. There was a message from Clayton, sent at 7:30 a.m. Subject: Transition and alignment. Per our new operational directive, we are streamlining the consultant interface. Please route all technical queries through my office for approval. We need to ensure a unified voice for the client. Thanks for being a team player. Unified voice, I murmured to the cubicle wall. You mean your voice. I took a screenshot. Then I checked the calendar. Strategic overview meeting at 10 a.m. I wasn't invited. It was 8:15. I had an hour and 45 minutes. I wasn't going to crash the meeting. That's desperation. I was going to be the ghost in the machine. I began documenting everything. Broken protocols. Security violations caused by moving my equipment. Clayton thought he'd demoted me. In reality, he'd given me a field position. And in the field, I don't miss. The annex turned out to be acoustically perfect. The thin partition walls and ventilation ducts carried sound from the executive conference room down the hall. At 9:55, Clayton walked past. Expensive suit. Confident stride of a man who has failed upward his entire life. He was speaking to his assistant, Sarah, young, nervous. Did you scrub the headers on the slide deck? He asked. Yes, Mr. Marks, she said quietly. I replaced the author metadata, D. Grant, with the company logo. Good. And the encryption logic summary. The one with all the math. I simplified it into bullet points. Excellent. We don't want to confuse stakeholders with weeds. We need to sell the vision. The weeds. He meant the cryptographic proofs that prevent a hacker from redirecting a Tomahawk missile into a population center. They entered the conference room. I opened the internal messaging app. My access was restricted, but not gone. I watched as Sentinel_protocol_v4.5_final was modified. Last edited by C. Marks. He wasn't just taking credit. He was erasing the audit trail. If something goes wrong in defense code, and something always goes wrong, investigators check metadata. If his name was on it, he'd be liable. But Clayton only saw glory. I walked past the conference room later. The glass walls had been frosted. Transparency that blocks the view. Through the slightly open door, I heard him. The key to the Sentinel system, Clayton was saying, is the synergistic overlay of the AI heuristics. I almost laughed. Dr. Aris, our lead systems engineer, interrupted. The heuristic engine isn't an overlay. It's the kernel. If we document it that way, DoD compliance will flag it as a vulnerability. Aris, Clayton said smoothly, we're speaking to generals, not coders. They want to know it works. Not how the sausage is made. Let's focus on the wow. The wow. This man was going to get people killed. Back in my cubicle, an email from legal arrived. Subject: Contractor status review. Per the request of the VP of Strategic Accounts, we are reviewing the necessity of external consultancy for the maintenance phase. Please surrender your physical access keys by EOD Friday. Digital access will transition to read-only effective immediately. Friday was 3 days away. The final presentation was Tuesday. Perfect timing. He wanted me erased before the general walked in. I didn't argue. I opened a secure partition on my laptop, my insurance policy. Years ago, in Black Ops Logistics, I learned something important: never build a house you can't lock from the outside. Sentinel was my house. Clayton had the front door keys. He didn't know about the foundation hatch. I wasn't sabotaging anything. I'm a patriot, not a vandal. Instead, I activated a latent logging feature buried deep in the compiler. Every keystroke, every file change, every modification Clayton or his team made would now mirror to a secure server under my control. If he wanted ownership, he could own every mistake. Around noon, Clayton stopped by my cubicle. "Diana," he said, leaning against the partition. "We had a great session. Really moved the ball down the field." "I heard," I replied. "The wow factor," he grinned. "Exactly," he went on about, leaning up, "and how my heavy lifting was done." I looked him in the eye. "The protocol isn't in maintenance, Clayton. It's in pre-deployment validation. If you change metadata headers, you break the checksums. The DoD servers will reject the update." He waved a hand. "We'll fix it in post." Details. He asked me to forward all raw data to Sarah. Mentioned Friday again. "We want a clean break. No loose ends." "No loose ends," I repeated. He tapped the cubicle wall and walked away, whistling. He thought he'd fired a subordinate. In reality, he'd dismissed the only person who knew how to fly the plane he was piloting. I opened a new document. Incident report, unauthorized metadata modification, risk of checksum failure. Dated, timestamped, digitally signed. I wasn't just taking notes anymore. I was building a dossier. That evening, I drove 5 miles south to a diner called The Hangar. Cracked vinyl booths. Coffee that tastes like battery acid. It's where mid-level Pentagon brass go when they don't want a paper trail. Colonel Marcus Alvarez was waiting in the back booth. Hoodie, jeans, but posture rigid, eyes scanning the entrance every few seconds. "You look like hell," I told him. "And you look like you're dressed for a funeral," he replied. "Maybe I am." He didn't waste time. "My secure comms have been buzzing. Update flags on Sentinel don't match the deployment schedule. Authorship tags are strange. They're strange because Clayton Marks is rewriting history," I said. He scrubbed my name. "He's signing his own." Marcus swore quietly. "He's the new VP," I continued. "As of this morning, I'm in a cubicle by the bathroom, and my contract ends Friday." Terminated before final review. Marcus stiffened. "That's suicide. The general won't sign off without the architect in the room. Clayton thinks he can vouch for it. If he forces an update with broken checksums during the live demo, the system locks down," I finished. "Interprets it as hostile injection. 48 hours to purge cache. We go blind." Marcus looked ready to flip the table. "I should pull him out of that office." "No," I said sharply. "Not yet. If you intervene now, he spins it. I become the disgruntled contractor. He becomes a martyr." I pulled a ruggedized black hard drive from my purse and slid it across the table. "What's this?" "The truth. Source code as of 0700 this morning, signed with my private key. A log of every change he's made. Deleted threat simulations. Emails instructing bypass of safety checks." Marcus rested his hand over it. "Keep it off the grid," I said. "Don't plug it in yet. Just have it ready." "When?" "Tuesday." Realization dawned on him. "You're going to let him hang himself. I'm going to hand him the rope. He's the one tying the knot." The waitress refilled my coffee. "It was awful. It was perfect. One more thing," Marcus said. "If he pulls this off, he's untouchable. CEO within a year." "He won't pull it off," I said calmly. "How can you be sure?" I looked out at the flickering street lamp in the parking lot. "Because he thinks Sentinel is a product. It isn't. It's a living system. And he doesn't understand it." I turned back to Marcus. "I built a dependency into the core logic. A manual handshake. A specific cryptographic key entered by the lead architect every 30 days. If that handshake doesn't happen, system lockout," Marcus whispered. "The handshake is due Tuesday," I said quietly. "At 1400 hours. Right in the middle."